Hi, so today we're going to be going over Spark encryption. In this video, we're going to cover what Spark is, who Spark is for, why you want to encrypt in the first place, how to both install and set up Spark, how to use some of Spark's more basic features, and why you should choose Spark over other encryption products. So first, let's talk about what Spark is. Spark is a file encryption system or ecosystem, if you want to consider the multiple components that. It's composed of multiple components that are all interoperable, and you'll see some of that later in this video. And most importantly, it's designed to be easy to use, because the reason most encryption is not used today is that it's difficult. So it was designed with ease of use in mind. So who is Spark for? Well, the first audience is financial focused firms and businesses. So your accounting firms, your finance firms, your investment firms, your real estate firms. And the reason for that we'll cover in the legal section right after this. However, just know that primarily it's about protecting your client's data and ensuring that you prevent some of the legal liability that can come with having that exposed. Spark is also targeted for legal firms. That can be civil, criminal, patent, or corporate attorneys. In most cases, there is a discovery, and in patents, there are many motions and filings that are very sensitive, and should those get out, they can completely ruin cases. Attorneys also have the same essentially duty to protect their clients' information that those financial firms have. So it's important for both of them to protect that information. Before we cover why you'd be interested in using Spark encryption, let's cover why you would want to be using encryption in the first place. So here we have a summary by Baker and Hostetler LLP about the breach laws in the United States. Now, all 50 states and 3 territories of the United States have breach laws and some form of encryption safe harbor. The only one that is not complete, to my knowledge, is California's, where it states that if what is exposed is a medical record, even if in encrypted form, it's not covered under the encryption safe harbor. So let's go over this law real quick. This is Missouri Revised Statute 407. So, personal information of Missouri residents. So that can be a unique electronic identifier, a routing code, security codes, access codes, or passwords to financial accounts, medical and health insurance information, basically any kind of financial or medical information record or access code / password is covered under this. Now, something to pay attention to here under persons covered is that it covers any person that conducts business in Missouri that owns or licenses personal information in any form of a resident of Missouri. So you can be based in another state, let's say Iowa. You can be based in Iowa, and if you're dealing with a Missouri resident's information, you must conform to Missouri's regulatory statutes. Now, there is an encryption safe harbor in Missouri, just like all states, which says that personal information does not include encrypted data or information that is redacted, altered, or truncated. Now, in the word-for-word Missouri law, you'll see it says the same thing. An individual's first name or initial and last name in combination with any one or more of the following data elements that relate to the individual if any of the data elements are not encrypted. So in a blog by amp.legal, we can see that they cover the safe harbor provision. They state that many statutes include a safe harbor provision to reward businesses for encrypting their data. This provision allows an organization to portray the security event as an incident instead of declaring it had a breach. Importantly, this provision relieves the business from the expense and humiliation of having to send out breach notifications. To use a safe harbor, the breached organization must prove that it encrypted the sensitive data in accordance with the state statute. Now, Spark does have reporting that will help you with that proof. Many state statutes specify a safe harbor for encryption where the trigger for notification is unauthorized access or acquisition of personal unencrypted computerized data. Other state breach statutes do not define encryption at all. Meanwhile, some states have defined breach or personal information to specifically exclude encrypted data where the unauthorized person has the key required to decrypt the data. This exclusion creates the argument that encrypted data is no longer has a safe harbor from notification. Now, real quick, we'll just cover here. Spark actually stores your data in an encrypted or hashed form. So this is your key file, and you can see that your key file is actually encrypted. All of my settings, my password, everything like that is in this blurb right here. And my second key file is the same way. Now, you can see that the daily lock is a hash. This is an encrypted hash. And it's not actually encrypted. A hash is essentially a check against an information. Now, it's cryptographically secure, so it is theoretically impossible to reverse the hash. And we store your password for that lock in the same manner. Now, you may be wondering, what is this going to... How is a breach going to hurt me beyond the humiliation? Well, according to a study by IBM, in the US, notification costs are about $740,000 per incident. And US notification costs are higher because of data breach notification regulations. Now we can go back to the summary and see that a notice at minimum, the bare minimum, should include a description of the incident, the type of personal information that was obtained, a telephone number that the affected consumer may call for further information and assistance, so that takes time, contact information for consumer reporting agencies, and advice that directs the affected consumer to remain vigilant by reviewing account statements and monitoring free credit reports. So essentially, that is what has to be sent out. Now, it varies by state, but in Missouri, that is what's required. Timing. Almost all of them say made without unreasonable delay and consistent with the legitimate needs of law enforcement as provided in this section. Now, not only do you have the risk of spending that $750,000 to notify, it'll be more if you're a larger company, but you also have civil liability. So the Attorney General shall have exclusive authority to bring an action to obtain actual damages for a willful and knowing violation of this section, and may seek a civil penalty not to exceed $150,000 per breach of the security of the system or a series of breaches of a similar nature that are discovered in a single investigation. And if 1,000 or more persons are affected, both the Attorney General and consumer reporting agencies must be notified. So by encrypting that, you are in the safe harbor and you are void from all of those, and it is just an incident. That is why you would be interested in just using encryption in general. So now that we've gone over the legal theory of why you should be encrypting, let's go over some of the actual realities of it. So here I'm on a website that covers the U.S. state data breach lists. Some states are required to publish them, some states choose to publish them, most states do not, but you can see here that we have the option of picking from a couple different states and what kind of breaches they have. So let's just go to the first one, available, California Attorney General Office Data Breach List. Okay, and you'll see that California law requires a business or a state agency to notify any California resident whose unencrypted personal information was acquired by an unauthorized person. And so here you can see examples of the breaches. And wow, it looks like they have one just about every day, every other day. So let's see here. Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation breach. Let's just take a look at that. Okay, and we can see that it was discovered on March 19th, 2020. It was in possession of a drive that contained Lincoln client data. Your personal information, which may have included your name, address, social security number, date of birth, bank account info, driver's license, and more. and what they are doing. So they are cooperating with law enforcement investigation. They're adding heightened security to the accounts. And you can see here they also arranged to provide a one-year membership to an identity monitoring service. Now, that obviously cost the business money. So on top of whatever fines were levied that are not public, they had to pay for a identity monitoring service for a year for anybody that was affected. The other stuff they're doing is probably not cheap, but it's tough to quantify that. But by simply encrypting that data, they can completely null or void all of that requirement. So not only do they not have to be publicly exposed for the breach if the data was kept safe and encrypted, but they don't have to deal with some of the costs associated with that. And let's just look at another one. Washington. And you can see that although a little less frequently than California, they also have just globs of breaches. Charles Schwab, that's another financial firm. So there was a spreadsheet containing participants' social security numbers and some other information, which is encryptable with Spark. There were 52 Washington residents affected. They also had to be sent a notification by regular mail. Remember, that varies by state. And in addition to notification, they also are offering a year of free credit monitoring to the 52 people affected. So that is going to cost the company money. There was also a fine levied that's not public. So things like this is what Spark can help you prevent. They can help you take advantage of that encryption safe harbor and remove the liability for things like this. And here we have collected some of the largest fines that have been levied against companies for data breach violations. So you can see some very name brand companies here: Uber, Marriott International, Yahoo, Target, University of Texas, and of course the big dog, Equifax, which I'm sure virtually everybody's heard about, and it's going to cost the company over $2 billion total after free credit reporting, legal fees, the actual fine levied, liability, in basically all 50 states. So encryption can help avoid those fines as well as all the things that we previously covered. So now that you know why you should be encrypting, let's go over why you should choose Spark as your encryption platform. Now, the first reason is, as any encryption or security software you'd expect, it's very secure. So, for example, this sparkc.exe is our drag and drop encryption and decryption option. So if I have a file like this, just some simple text inside of it, if I try and encrypt it without first unlocking my local installation of Spark, it will refuse to do anything. So you can see that it's still legible. By simply unlocking Spark, you can now see that I can easily encrypt it by dragging and dropping it. And that is now an illegible file. So that's great, but you may be wondering, how does this work into my daily workflow? Well, to demonstrate, here I have a directory of photo shoots that we've done for the company. Now, to use some of these photos, let's say I wanted this first row, all I would have to do is drag and drop them, and they are all now decrypted and ready to be used as a normal file. It adds one simple and easy step to your workflow. And of course, that can work for the whole directory. I can just pick everything and decrypt the whole thing. Very simple. Now, we can also do this with our GUI. So we do provide a user interface, which will be covered later in the video. But we're just going to go to that right now and give you a quick demonstration. So if I wanted to encrypt the text file on my desktop, all I'd have to do is go to it on my desktop, click open, and you will see that that text file is now encrypted. And once again, I can simply decrypt it, and it's legible. So let's say instead of needing to drag and drop each one of the files onto there, you wanted it to be done automatically for you, no user interaction at all. Well, we provide a tool called AutoSpark, which allows that to happen. So here I have a directory that AutoSpark points to, and how that all works will be directed in the second half of this video. But let's say I had this text document that I wanted in here. All I'd have to do is drag and drop it. And because AutoSpark activates every minute, at the top of this minute, you will see that it gets encrypted. And what that allows us to do is give you an easy way to encrypt and then only have one-step decryption, keeping your normal workflow totally intact. And you can see that it is now, again, an illegible file. Should I need to use it, simply drag and drop it. And it's now usable again. So that's great for text files and things like that. But let's say that you had something like this, which is the waiting times for ERs in Scotland. So this could contain sensitive client information, which, as we just covered, you can get in trouble for losing. So to encrypt an important document like that, all you'd have to do is drag and drop it. And you can see that it is now an encrypted document. There is no way that somebody can make sense of this. And once you needed to use it, you would simply drag and drop it once more. Now, you may also be wondering, what if I need to send a file, right? So what you can do is encrypt a file before you need to send it, like this. And use your normal email. So we'll just compose an email to myself and attach that file, that .spark file. And we'll just go ahead and send it. Now, in my downloads, I have an encrypted version. But let's say I sent that to myself or somebody else, or I stored that in a drive, a Dropbox, a Google Drive, what have you. And I no longer had access to my local Spark installation. I was on a business trip. I was at a, resort or a friend's house. Well, with a Spark license, you also have access to a web app that allows you the same capabilities from a distance. So to use those, we'll go to encrypt.thewavindustries.com. Now, I can choose a file to decrypt. We'll choose the one out of downloads. And I have to know my key. So my key for this video is test key. That is not a secure key, and we do not recommend using that. So once I have that all set up, I would like to decrypt it, and I'll just click upload. And you'll see it goes up to the server and then comes back down. And now I have a fully usable version of that Excel document with all of the same data. It was encrypted when it was emailed, so it was encrypted in transit, and it's now encrypted at rest until I have decrypted it. You can encrypt and decrypt multiple files at once with this, and it will return them in a zip. So really, the reason to use Spark is that it's secure. It is very easy to use. It adds one step to your normal process. And lastly, it's scalable. And to show you that real fast, I have pointed AutoSpark at a directory that was previously unencrypted, that at my Wireshark installation. And you'll see that this is a pretty sizable folder. I believe it's about 2 gigabytes. And just real quick, I'm going to let AutoSpark come through and show you kind of how it works in just encrypting the whole directory with no user interaction. And you'll see everything is real time before us being encrypted. All these, practically as fast as we can keep up with, all these files are just getting encrypted. And just as easily, if I wanted all these files decrypted, we'll show you exactly how this works later in the video, but I would just use our decryption tool. And you'll see that all these files are easy to use again. So that's Spark's scalability. Wave Industries will provide you with the MSIs and other installers for Spark encryption once you get licenses. For test purposes in this video, it will be something like this. We'll go to encrypt.thewavindustries.com/try Spark. And you'll see that that drops me the MSI. So now that I have the MSI, I'm going to go through the process of installing, generating keys, and then unlocking Spark for use. So the first thing I'm going to do is double click on this Spark Encryption MSI. And you're just going to go through the setup wizard like any other software. So we'll go next, next, and then finally you'll click install. And now Spark Encryption has been installed. You'll notice that on the desktop I have 2 new programs. I have sparkc.exe and unlock Spark. So now if I go to my C drive, down to program files, all the way down to Wave Industries, and under Spark Encryption, there are 2, possibly 3 things that you'll want to do. The first thing you'll want to do is generate a new key. So we'll go ahead and double click on this. Now this warns you that if you're changing your key, any automatic features will be broken unless they are decrypted first. What that means is if you have a store of files encrypted with, let's say, key 1, and you change it to key 2, when you try and decrypt those key 1 files, they will become corrupted. So if you're planning on doing that, please use AutoSpark Decrypt first, as it will decrypt everything that it can find with your current key set. So all Spark installations come with the standard key, test key first. That's not a secure key. That is just so that we can make it easier to get set up. We do recommend you choose a secure key. So you'll enter test key, and then you would like to enter your unique key. So I'm going to use test key for the demo purposes, but you should pick a fairly lengthy key that involves characters, numbers, and possibly special symbols. And now we're going to pick a cipher. Now, if you don't know what ciphers you can use, you can type wave C-line, and it will pop up with all the ciphers you have at your disposal. If you mistype a cipher, it will let you know that that is not technically a valid cipher. So I'm just going to type AES, which is the Advanced Encryption Standard. So now I've generated my key. Now there's also a master passgen.exe. So there's two components to Spark. The first one, to generate the new key, was the encryption key. Master passgen will generate the key you use to unlock your encryption. They are two separate keys. So we'll go ahead and generate one as well. So it will also ask you to enter the current one, and that is also test key. And then you will enter the new one. For demo purposes, we will use test key. However, we do recommend that you pick a secure key. Okay, so Spark is now set up. If I would like to use something, I will have to unlock it. Now you can see that currently if we try and decrypt something, so this is our drag and drop application, it will fail. To rectify that, all we have to do is enter our key, and Spark encryption is now unlocked. So if I drag and drop this, I now have an encrypted version of the same thing. And if I wanted to decrypt it, it is now decrypted. Now you can see I also have a video here. And I can just as easily drag and drop that. And now my video is encrypted. You also have the option to select multiple files at once. So if I drag and drop both of these, you can see they both become encrypted. And if I would like to decrypt them, simply drag and drop them and they will decrypt. Now the third option you have is setting up something we call AutoSpark. And AutoSpark is essentially a replacement for encrypted volumes. What it allows you to do is under encrypt directory, you can pick directories that will be encrypted recursively. So every subfolder under this directory will be encrypted. To set this up, all you have to do is run install as an administrator. You will enter the admin password for the user. Now, since I already have the task created, it will say it cannot create it because it is already existing, but for new users, it will say task successfully created. And essentially what that will do, let me open this in a new drive. As you can see that this is all encrypted. So if I decrypt this into things that are legible, we can wait for AutoSpark to come around again, and I will just pause the video. Currently it is set up to come around at the top of every minute. And you can see all the files were re-encrypted. Should you want to programmatically decrypt all the files, for example, if I wanted, instead of dragging and dropping these and dragging and dropping this, if I simply wanted to decrypt them, what I can do is execute AutoSpark decrypt, and it will go through and do that for me. So you can see that this was decrypted as well as all of these files. Spark also comes with a very user-friendly graphical user interface. To launch that, we're going to double-click on Spark Desktop.exe. And you'll see a local web server spin up. To access this address, you'll use localhost at port 555. This port can be changed if necessary. Localhost's moniker is 127.0.0.1. So we'll go to 127.0.0.1:555. And you can see our graphical user interface. Now, to encrypt something in here, what you can do is either enter a password for using non-key file, or you can leave it blank and it will use the key file that you already have set up. Now, this does also require it to be unlocked. So without your master gen password, nobody can decrypt files with this. It will simply refuse to boot. So we will simply select some files. And you can see we have all the encrypted ones in our AutoSpark directory right here. So we will just select all those and decrypt them, and you can see that they were all very easily decrypted. Now we also support reporting. So you can generate a report and send a report. Now generating a report does take some time. On my system, I have a 1 terabyte HDD. It takes about 5 minutes. What this does is it finds where all of your encrypted directories are, any directory with a .spark file, and tells you the directory. It also tells you the amount of files you have encrypted, the space that's encrypted, and like I said, all the directories. We also have the ability to send a report. Now, we will text you, if you set it up, we can text you a notification that your report is ready, and we can also, you can select whatever email you would like to have the notification sent to. It comes as a PDF. So we're going to skip that for now, but just know that that is there for your convenience. So let's quickly go over how to get a report with Spark. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open your Spark desktop GUI, which we are currently on. Now, there are a couple things to be aware of. Under your Wave Industries folder, there are 2 files that contain the options and settings for using this. So here we have an example Gmail and a password that we use to email the report to us. Now this is just a sample. If you have your own SMTP server or wish to set up your own Gmail server, that is fine. It can go right here. You simply have to put the email address and the password. Now this is the email address it will be emailed to. In this case, I'm just emailing it to myself. Now if I would like text notifications, I can put my number and my carrier here. The number first goes here and the carrier goes down here. Once that is all set up, when I want to generate a report, I will simply click Generate Report and click Report Submit. Now I'm going to pause the video while we do that, as that takes about 5 minutes on my machine. Now that it has returned on my machine and is finished, you can see that I have, I'll just show you where it is, my encryption report. So you can see, I can see the number of files that I have encrypted. I can see the total space I have encrypted, and I can also see all the directories where I have encrypted files. This can help you both manage and prove where things were encrypted. Okay, now if I wanted that sent to myself, all I would have to do is click Send Report and click Report Submit. I'll check my email. And I now have a report from Spark that tells me all of that same information. So if you have a network admin or a boss who you need that emailed to, this can handle that automatically as well. And that is how you can get reporting with Spark. Alright, so in this video, remember that we covered what Spark is, which is a business-to-business encryption ecosystem, who Spark is for, which is financial and legal firms, why you want to encrypt, which is to ultimately save yourself money, how to install and set up Spark, how to use some of Spark's basic features like encryption and reporting, and why you should choose Spark.